Dead On with Randy Ulmer, brought to you by Hoyt.
Well, today I want to try to convince you to use a range-finding binocular as opposed to just a monocular, small handheld rangefinder. And there's a lot of different reasons, and I realize that they're expensive, but if you can afford them, they're well worth the money. When you use a binocular, you tend to not have to use as much motion, because most of the time when we're looking at a deer, we're watching him through the binoculars. And if you can range find him through the binoculars, you don't have to have that extra motion of putting your binoculars down, reaching in, getting your rangefinder, bringing it up. There's also other reasons. Rangefinder binoculars tend to be of higher power, like these SIGs are 10 power, and they have a much smaller reticle, meaning the red dot or the red square or the red circle you're using to actually aim at the animal is much smaller, so you can be very precise, whereas most handheld monocular type rangefinders usually are 4 to 6 power, and the reticle is much larger, so you're much more likely to be inaccurate. And the smaller the divergence of the laser beam, the more likely you are to be able to, say, range an antler tip at a distance. I do a lot of spot and stalk hunting, and a lot of times the only thing I can see on the mule deer that I'm stalking is an antler tip. And if I use a really high quality rangefinder like this, I can beam in on that antler tip at, say, 40, 45 yards and get the antler tip, not the grass around it, and not what's behind the antler tip. I lost a really nice sheep, or I didn't lose him, I missed him, because I was in the fog and I just had a relatively inexpensive monocular rangefinder, and it wouldn't range find through the fog because it didn't have the power. And ever since that time, I swore I would never use an inferior rangefinder, and that's why I always use something like an expensive, very well made rangefinder binocular.